Hi, I'm Lee Benz, the home scholar, and I got a really great question from Michelle, but I really need to read it carefully because the way she phrased it was just beautiful. She said, how do I do a better job teaching my child than educators that have had years of specialized training in each discipline and in methods to teach them? Great question, and I think it really points out why homeschooling is so successful, because we don't have all of this specialized training, but we do have one child at a time that we need to focus on, and I think that that's why we're so successful. In fact, I have lots of friends and relatives that are teachers, and one of the things that they tell me is that teachers go to school for 4 years, and a lot of what they're learning is the philosophy of teaching and crowd control. Neither of those two things are really helpful when you're homeschooling. When you're homeschooling, your focus is on teaching your child the academics that they need. And I think that that's why, measurably, homeschoolers do a much better job of teaching our children, because we focus on academics. And that's what you can do, is to make sure that you're covering the core: reading, writing, math, science, history, and by focusing on those core classes, rather than all these nuances that take place in a classroom setting, they will be better prepared. The other thing that you can think about too is what happened in your own high school. I know that that's something I tell a lot of stories about when I was in high school, because I think it helps to bring normalcy to what we're doing and compare what we're doing to reality. And of course, now public education isn't as good as it was in the decade that I went to high school. So I want you to think about what you did in high school. How hard were the classes? How much did you study? How far in math did you get? And ask yourself these open-ended questions. If you don't feel comfortable homeschooling a particular subject area, that's probably because the public schools didn't do such a good job. Okay? Now the bigger question then is, how do you teach these hard things, like physics or calculus or something? And a lot of that has to do with delegating to a tutorial or a textbook of some kind. And so that will mean you buy curriculum that is intended for homeschoolers, that assumes that mom knows nothing because she went to public school. And then you use this video tutorial to talk them through the lessons, and then they practice with the textbook or exercises or hands-on or whatever until they actually understand the concepts. I think that that's one of the reasons why colleges look at homeschoolers, and when they see our transcript, maybe that has a lot of A's on it or all A's on it, they know that that can possibly happen, because we're so emotionally invested in making sure that our children understand things before moving on. Think about how common it is in a public school. When a child is sick for 5 days or 10 days, what happens to the classroom? They don't wait. The math lesson, long gone, 2 weeks down the road, and they're working on that math lesson, can cause huge gaps. And homeschoolers don't do that. When our child is sick or doesn't understand, we will go over it or wait until they can absorb it or teach it in a different way so that the child will actually learn something before moving on. And I think that that's why, in general, homeschoolers are so much more effective at teaching their own child, because our focus is on the child and the child's learning, and the focus is not on a classroom full of 30 children or on ourselves and our own training. I hope that helps. It was a fun question. Thanks. Have a great day.